You're good.
Calling to order the Governance and Priorities meeting of Monday, May 4th, 2026, 5 p.m. First up is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions for that?
I have them.
Thank you. Can I get a motion from the floor to adopt the agenda?
I can do that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Carr has a motion on the floor. You wanna-
Move the council adopt the minutes of the April 7th, 2026 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting as presented.
No, you're on the one before this one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here, I'll just give you this.
Skipper wasn't on anyway. Move the council adopt the May 4th, 2026 Governance and Priorities committee meeting agenda as presented. Sorry.
All those in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Next up, the adoption of the minutes for the April 7th, 2026 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. Can we have a motion to adopt that? Go ahead, Councilor Forsyth.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the April 7th Governance and Priorities Committee meeting as presented.
All those in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Up next, we have a delegation from the FBM Architecture Limited, the Town of Peace River Retail Gap Analysis that we've been waiting for. So very excited to hear about this. Are you on?
You're in. We're ready for you.
Oh, great. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great. Perfect. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I will share my screen and jump right into it, respectful of everybody's time. We'll just get the right presentation up and running. I just have to find the one. There we go. Can everybody see my screen okay?
We can now. Yeah, you bet.
Perfect. Great. Well, we'll jump right into it here. In the time we have today, I do apologize if I go fast. I want to make sure we get across the content here and obviously open to questions as we proceed through. And as is customary in all of our projects, obviously we acknowledge the treaty lands on which we reside and work, and yourselves there in Peace River, as well as myself here coming to you from Halifax today from the Mi'kmaq. I'll just take you through a few items and highlight the key points from our retail gap and services analysis and talk you through the trade area, a bit of the profile of the spending, the implications of the inventory supply on demand and the forecast for the community, a little bit of touch on some of the services, business services perspective, and then just talk a little bit about some of the implications and obviously welcome and open it up to some questions at the end from council. So jumping right into the trade area, and for those councillors, I did a study for Peace River, similar one, a very high level retail analysis back in 2017, I think it would have been. And at that time, we didn't dive as deep as this study. But again, the understanding of the work that we've done in Grand Prairie, as well as for the town of Manning in the past, and even further up to high level, and as well as in Fairview, we have a pretty good feel of the trade area audience. And I would say that that generally speaking, this trade area is probably errs on the side of conservatism as opposed to being too aggressive. I think it's a very fair trade area, and the current population of that trade area shown in blue is just under 25,000, and that's in the world of retail attraction and tenant attraction. We tend to look at these benchmarks of 25,000, 50, and 100,000. A lot of retailers will look at those as their starting points. Sometimes they look at just the community themselves and without an understanding of the broader draw. And that's why it's important that these studies help to show that it's not just the town of Peace River, even though that's the centroid of the area. It's a much larger draw to upwards to Manning, and 60-minute drive to the east and north, and a little bit less to the south and the east. That's largely because of the draw of Grande Prairie. But again, we factor in a lot of these in what serves as the regional sub-regional market for Peace River as a retail location. Within that population itself, we looked at some of those key trade area attributes that a lot of retailers and not just branded retailers, but any local entrepreneurs, if they're looking to start up businesses, what sort of profile of business are they looking to start up, and who are their target markets? And a young age profile, a very higher index of youth under 24, so a very young emerging family profile in the market, very healthy household incomes. And if you see on the right, a significant proportion above 100,000, and in fact, an even higher index in that $150,000 to $200,000 per average household income. So again, a very healthy profile in terms of your age and family composition within that trade area and in the town itself. What we like to do in some of these studies is develop what are called lifestyle clusters. You might have heard the term psychographics or tapestry profiles, but again, lifestyle clusters, really what they do is they aggregate all the demographics into a series of more relatable segments and profiling what that age is, what their consumer preferences are, household preferences. And in the case of the trade area here, not the town, but the trade area, the largest segment is what's called this urban life in small towns at almost 70%, compared to the national average for that same segment, which is about 7.2%. That profile in that bottom left side of the screen there in the urban life in small towns, again, that just speaks to some of their favorite coffee shops or types of vehicles they drive, what they tend to be active in. And these are somewhat generalized, but enough to understand that you could see where if we're talking about where they're spending money, Walmart or Co-op or IGA, No Frills. Again, you can see where that relates to Peace River's positioning even today. Other segments are that up the ladder segment, which is pretty consistent with the national average. I think that's really emblematic of that age demographic we were just talking about, where you have young families growing and developing their family and their profile within the community itself. And then the third one is that rural handyman, which is higher than the national average. Again, but that is in that 55 to 64 age bracket, independent, like all their toys, and again are shopping in outdoor types of segments. So again, I think this is just a different way to visualize the key segments within the trade area for Peace River's retail market. One thing we did as well as part of this survey is we undertook a resident consumer survey. So we had some really good traction of just almost 400 respondents for the survey that ran from September to October, and also included some in-person intercepts in October at the local farmers market. Most of the respondents, 62%, came from Peace River, but you could see a spattering there in that Grimshaw County, Northern Lights, Northern Sunrise County region. And again, it's somewhat validates the trade area that we were speaking to, but largely in that Peace River audience. The bar chart you see on your right is a specific question that we ask in these sorts of surveys to understand the spending habits of the respondents, how much they're spending inside the town of Peace River, that's at the existing businesses, how much they're spending outside of Peace River, that's in the sort of the gold bar in the middle, and then how much they're spending online. Obviously, over the last decade plus, we've seen the profile of online spending change, and even in this study, we can see some interesting new evolution to spending. But if we look at the grocery, those day-to-day services, the grocery, alcohol, personal care, and services, they're very, very well supported in attracting spending inside of Peace River, and that's supported by what you see in your inventory. Similarly, the sit-down restaurants and quick service restaurants are also doing fairly well in almost 2/3 of the residents and respondents suggesting they're spending their money inside the community. Where there's obviously leakage, which means the dollars aren't staying in town as much, or in those categories of fashion and accessories, home improvement and decor, and sporting goods, books and hobbies. But interestingly, what's really compelling in that is that it's almost an equal amount of spending people are spending outside of town as they are online. So it can't all, part of that might be attributed to the pull of Grand Prairie, but really it's the online sales that are really much more prominent in those segments. And even for segments like personal care and sit-down restaurants where they might be smaller, the influence of online is there, whether it's ordering online for deliveries, or in personal care, we're seeing a lot more cosmetics purchased online. So again, these do have some impacts on the way businesses will position themselves in markets. And again, if we look at grocery and pharmacy, we're looking at online pharmaceuticals and other goods that are just slightly starting to attract some of that online spending as well. But again, overall, on your day-to-day market needs, you perform quite well. I think there's always room for some growth, but there's the draw on grocery, alcohol, those sorts of segments can be drawn to Grand Prairie for places like Costco, of course. But overall, quite a healthy profile of spending amongst the respondents. I won't go into detail into some of these, but during our surveys, we like to ask open-ended questions to get a sense of people, to see what people have that's beyond the questions we ask them. Is there anything that works? Is there anything that's missing? And again, feedback on downtown, just being, making sure that it's has the placemaking attributes that make people want to be in the downtown, more patios, nightlife. And again, people generally want to have a bit more of an experience when they're shopping, and that's more the role of a downtown as opposed to the larger format in and around West Hills. But there was a desire to see some healthier quick service options, and again, there are certainly franchises that are fulfilling that niche as well. And then again, ethnic diversity and maybe some things for the kids to do beyond what's there today. And that could speak to the reflecting back on the younger demographic profile of the community. The next part of our study, again, having a foundation of the demographics, the trade area, the resident and regional resident wants and needs. We looked at the retail, but what we did is we don't look at it as in isolation of any particular area. We look at all the areas and nodes and document them in great detail to understand how each node is positioned within the community and what opportunities each present and how are each area performing from a health perspective, whether that's the types of businesses, vacancies, and other factors. The areas we looked at there, the downtown, which we did break into a sub area of the downtown west towards the river, sort of near where the former Bell Center is and along the river's edge there. We also looked at the north end, sort of your established residential community with the new rec center. But again, just wanted to get a sense to see what sort of neighborhood commercial might be there. And then the West Hills, we broke into a few areas, the traditional industrial area, but then there's that's in the furthest south. Then there's the West Hill Retail South. That's an emerging area continuing to grow out towards the hospital. And the West Hill Retail North, which is sort of your go-to right now with Walmart, Friesens, and auto dealerships. In total, of retail only, there's about just approximately 800,000 square feet of retail space. Now, we documented in the study about 2.2 million square feet of other uses as well, and that could be what we would classify as non-retail, whether it's light industrial or professional and financial services, office uses. So again, this is strictly call it the ground level retail inventory at about 800,000, and that vacancy sitting at about 7.3%. which is above the industry standard of around 5. However, the big disclaimer there is that includes PV Mart, Sands, and the Bell Center, which all three of those are sort of your largest vacancies. And in reality, the Bell Center likely doesn't have a retail future to it. It probably has a higher and better use than retail. So that in reality probably comes out of that retail inventory. And the former Sands might have some challenges, but again, it still has a viable future for retail, we believe. And PV Mart, again, we don't know what their reestablished future might have in store, but even as a retail space, I think it could be very attractive for other users to take that space. So again, we don't have any concern with that. And the rest of the vacancies, some are small, but in downtown and other nodes, but no major concerns from our perspective in the retail. There is Westhill Plaza coming on as well. So I think that the overall picture there is one of relative stability, I would say. Looking a little deeper at the inventory, one thing we're always cognizant of in communities, especially outlying communities like yourself, where you're not in the core urban environment, is what's that mix of local to brand or franchise types of independent operators to franchises. And right now, in terms of the number of businesses, you have 71% of the actual business count as local and 29% branded. And that's pretty good. I think what we usually try to see is a 70-30 type of split, or sometimes maybe a 75-25. So again, you're right in the ideal fit there. And not surprisingly, though, when we look at the amount of floor space for those same businesses, it sort of flips the script, because we have many larger anchor retailers in the market, whether it's Walmart, Friesens, No Frills. So again, they tend to dominate the floor space side of things. And again, what we would typically find in that is probably in that 40-60 range. So again, you are pretty consistent with comparable communities. Your average independent store size, from our estimate, is around 3,200. We sometimes see that at around 25 to 3,000. So you're probably on the higher end there. And then the average branded store size, again, I think is not unexpected to be higher. This is just a picture from a capture from our report, which in each one of the nodes that we profiled, we looked in detail to understand what is the primary composition of each area. And we looked and mapped out the merchandise categories in that diagram on the right to get a sense of the character of the mix, what's there today, as also important, particularly if you're looking at the retail attraction side of things, is where are some of the vacancies that are available. And if we look at the downtown, we can see there's some vacant lands, vacant lots in and along the main street. And as we get down towards sort of the southern portion where the Sands is and the mall, there are a scattering of vacancies there. What's interesting and in a quite a positive light here is that on your core spine of 100th Street, the retail seems to have a pretty good connectivity of occupied stores. And that's always important when you're talking about the consumers traveling up and down on that, walking on the sidewalks up and down. What they're going to see is occupied stores more than vacant stores. So again, there's not a lot, particularly in the central part of the main street. So the vacancies tend to be off on side streets or in other areas where maybe they might not even be prime retail spots. But again, a relatively healthy picture of the retail environment downtown. And I don't think vacancy is a huge problem there. There are some, obviously, that need to be backfilled. But when we look at the core space, and including some of the vacant lots, I think there's a good opportunity to continue the work that's been done on the revitalizing the downtown. One thing we've developed over the past 20 years that I've been doing this is an understanding of where communities sit on what we call sort of a retail spectrum of growth. And This is a per capita ratio, and what that simply is it's the amount of your retail space against the population, and in this case, your trade area population, because there isn't much elsewhere beyond Peace River. And when we look at that analysis and look at the population against the inventory, it reveals somewhere in the range of 32 to 33 square feet per capita. That's square feet of retail space per person in the trade area. And over the last 20 years, these numbers seem to be borne out in reality, where a rural village doesn't have a lot of a high square foot per capita. And as you go up to sort of the urban and regional cities, and even Grand Prairie is higher than this because they serve an even bigger area than their local trade area. But when we look at and dial back specifically to Peace River, you fall perfectly into that urban town, 25 to 35 square foot per capita. You're at the 33, so right near the end there, and that just shows how you're at a comfortable level. You probably somewhat balanced, but there is still opportunity for growth to push that towards the 35 and even a little bit above 35 if you needed to. Again, and that's driven by the fact that you do have a regional draw of your own to support conservatively at that 25,000 person mark. The spending within the trade area represents about 316 million in total retail spending. And that's not the only factor we looked at. We do realize that there are a lot of passing motorists that come through from beyond the trade area. There's also visitors that will come through. So we know there's another inflow factor of spending. And we estimate that at about 2%, or just over $11 million of annual spending that could be attributed to passing motorists or workforce like myself coming through town and having dinner at the various restaurants within the community. So again, the way we look at this is the size of the pie. It's not how much the city is necessarily capturing in spending, but what it is it's the potential of the total trade area in what they spend on retail goods and services. The next step takes us through that process of understanding, well, if we know how much that pie is, if we can picture it as a pie, how much are we currently capturing of that pie to support our growth? And our analysis reflecting back on where the spending patterns were in the consumer survey as well, which spoke of 70% and 60% for the goods on convenient day-to-day conveniences, but lower on your comparison goods. We estimated that your current market capture is about total of 57%. And if we maintained that 57% current market capture over the course of the next decade, you could reasonably, with your population growth as it's forecast now, support somewhere in the range of 180,000 square feet. But it's always important to consider some of those vacancies that are in there. So the PV Mart, for example, factoring some of that. So we don't want to necessarily say that you need 180,000 of absolutely new build constructible space, but what you want is you want that retail space absorbed in both new and some of your existing vacancies. So conservatively, we're looking at around 100,000. If we just maintain that same market share, meaning stay the course, continue to market the community as you are, you could support growth in that range of 100,000 in your existing spaces and some new spaces. The other way to look at this that we like to present to communities, some communities want to see, well, could we do better? And there is another path to that, and that's if we looked at just a moderate increase in the market share over the next decade, and that market share could be just improved through increased marketing of the businesses themselves, or just other initiatives within the community that to attract more residents or more visitors to the area. And it doesn't discount the ability with other economic development initiatives happening external to the town that could impact these as well. But if we do increase that market share and set a little goal to see if we can increase that market share, it could result in 230,000 of total retail demand, or if we're again factoring in some of that inventory of vacant space, 150,000. So again, we're looking at that 100 to 150,000 square feet of new space over the next 10 years as a reasonable target for the community. And I think it's achievable for the community. One of the other ways to look at market share increase, and again, this is why I say conservative in this future demand, is one of the elements is that towns like yourself and with businesses in the downtowns, we want to try to make sure that they have the most solid footing for future success. And where I'm going with that is that increasing the market share doesn't come at the expense of businesses themselves having a strong, performing stronger. So you may not garner or may not attract the 100 to 150,000 square feet necessarily, but if you promote the community strong enough and that market share can translate into stronger sales for some of your existing businesses. So it's not just about new space all the time. It can be about increasing the productivity of your existing businesses in the community. And that's part of the tenant retention side of things, the retention side of the equation, as opposed to just attraction. But it is overall, this is more like a working a puzzle where you want to attract some key missing pieces, but you also want to make sure you're not bringing these businesses in to the detriment of others in the community as well. In terms of land, what we try to do is correlate that future demand of that 100 to 150,000 square feet to what does it mean for new land if you needed to actually, if you were looking at zoning for some new land, or if you have enough land already to accommodate that. And if we think about where West Hills is in the area around the hospital and the highway commercial, we're looking at anywhere from 8 to 12 acres of land. So it looks like you're fairly well positioned to accommodate new demand as it occurs in the market over the next 10 years. And I know there are certain plans and in place for growth. So that would be in the downtown. There's some infill redevelopment there along the main streets. There's also the West Hills North, which is continuing its growth, and then the West Hills South, where development is undoubtedly going to continue along the corridor. The last little piece there that we also looked at in our study as we get near the end here is just an understanding of some of the non-retail businesses. Those are sort of some of those light industrial services that are within the community. And when we looked at the location quotient, which is a measure of the number of businesses to the resident base, we found that electrical contractors were lower than the industry average in the province. Plumbing, HVAC contractors were above average. Painting were lower. These were some specific segments that jumped out to us. However, it was, when in discussing this with Barb and Karine, what we found was that there is a perception, and even in our survey, it was the perception was that there's a lot of HVAC contractors. The challenge is that many of them are very small businesses, so they're always booked or they're not able to. So the perception is that there aren't enough. The reality is they're just smaller businesses. So there isn't a larger HVAC contracting or plumbing contracting firm within the community. So again, that's sort of a bit of a disconnect between what the survey said, but when we dig into the size of the businesses, it reveals a slightly different picture, which could lead to opportunities to target certain types of business services in the community. And the last couple pages here, we did take a peek to understand what types of retailers or food and beverage businesses might be looking at opportunities within the community. Yisk, for example, I think is a good fit, and that could be a prime target to do a partial backfill of a store like the Peavey Mart. Value Village, similarly, could be a good fit. Again, they are located within Grand Prairie, but the distance between, they're not large regional draws of their own. So I think they could be strong fits, as would something like Bulk Barn in the market. You do have a lot of grocery stores per capita there. So we're not heavy on a pure traditional grocer, but something like Giant Tiger might also be an opportunity. And Dollar Tree will always go where Dollarama is, and I know Dollarama just opened, so Dollar Tree again would open up an opportunity. And there are some strong opportunities on the quick service there, including Freshie, which is a responds to that sort of health focus that was identified in the survey. So again, just to recap, we're thinking of a conservative demand in that 100,000 to 150,000 of net new build space. It's always important whenever we're talking about growth and the efforts that the town is putting into the downtown revitalization to work with the downtown businesses and landlords to promote, improve, and utilize vacant spaces. I was just on a call today with the town of Whitecourt discussing incentives and how they can, what do they need to do to help and maintain the vibrancy of the downtown. And I think it's always something to be cognizant of as you also look to attract new businesses into the community. But the intensification and redevelopment will be a strong direction for downtown. And I think when we say that less retail focus on the downtown west, that's where the Bell Center is. I think there's a good mix of light industrial with mixed business in the area. And again, just reiterating that retail growth doesn't need to come at the expense of downtown. And although the highway corridor is where your brands are going to be most drawn to, and we have to look sometimes at the whole, which is if you can attract. If you can get the right businesses to attract more people within the community working towards that increased market share, then your other local retailers can piggyback on that opportunity and make sure that their marketing is strong to not just develop, but recruit those local businesses. So with that, I will stop sharing and welcome any questions that you might have today. And again, it's been an honor to work with the town on this, and I hope it's not 10 years between the next one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deuce?
Thank you. It's my mic on here. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple questions. I'm just curious to know how you came about the recommendations that you're making in the retail prospects, and specifically to the point that you made about wanting to bring in additional businesses, but making sure that they're not to the detriment of other already existing businesses. For example, I'm looking at your quick service F&B here. You're recommending Mary Brown's Chicken and Popeyes highlighted on here. Does Peace River really need 3 chicken restaurants?
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's an either or. It wouldn't be both in any way. It would be at that point in time, the retailers themselves will sort of understand and feel the market out. I would not suggest that you would go for both of those. I would say what you do is you cast your net to see which one would be interested in the market and which one might have the best opportunity for them. Some of them have different needs. Mary Brown's doesn't always have to have a drive-through and could be downtown. Popeyes tends to want drive-throughs, so they would probably want to be in West Hills, and that would be their sole location. So again, it's a matter of understanding what their specific needs might be, but I would not advocate for both of them by any means, at the same time at least.
And
Sorry.
And just to follow up on that just a little bit more. So going back to the recommendations that you had made, you'd referred to in your report that we had several businesses that we don't actually have. Like you mentioned an A&W and a Pizza Hut, which we don't have currently in town. So I'm just curious how much like walking around did you do? Where did you get the information for the businesses that we currently have in the town? And just to touch on that with the Mary Brown's Chicken and the Popeyes, I'm looking at the Fit for Less by Good Life. We already have 4 fitness facilities in the town, or gyms. So I'm just curious why that one might have been recommended.
And that's just a smaller brand operation. It's not as big as the normal Good Life, so they're a smaller footprint. What we did when we went there was I was there for a couple days coming into town documenting. So I walked the downtown with camera and video and then also used my camera as I drove. Don't tell the RCMP, and take the video, come back, and we review the video for that. So there was a matter of documenting both with video photography as well as on the ground, especially in the downtown where we walked all the streets.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Carr, or Deputy Mayor Carr, sorry.
My question is on the same information here. I'm just curious, this list that you have here, are these businesses that are interested in expanding into communities of our size? Is that the criteria that they made the list?
Yeah, what we try to do is we try to vet those. We have a large roster of typical retailers across the country, various markets. So what we tried to do is look and see, given the demographics, given the spending profile, given what's there right now, and given what their typical needs are for site location, those are sort of recommendations at this point in time. Again, with realizing what types of sizes they're looking for, what type of spaces they might be interested in. It's never a guarantee, but it just gives a bit of a target to aspire for those businesses.
Yeah, thank you. I like the list.
I will also, yeah, and I'll also add, a lot of those businesses are franchise businesses as well. They have franchise models, and that opens the opportunity for whether it's an existing franchisee in Grand Prairie that wants to expand their portfolio, but not in Grand Prairie, but wants to have one elsewhere. Sometimes the franchisees do like looking at a master franchisee who they already have in the region, but it also opens the opportunity to look at someone locally that may be looking at a franchise model.
Any other questions? I have a couple. So in the main report, I think a lot of this will be fleshed out, correct? In the larger document?
Correct. Yes.
I'm really looking forward to diving into that. I wanted a question on the tapestry profiles on the up the ladder. Like, where did you get the info? How did you find, again, how did you find the for your content? What was your survey to get things like, what I'm curious, I'm looking at the vehicles, and I find that very interesting how that changed from all of them, and then ending up with only 3 brands on 35 to 44 up the ladder. And can you talk to that a little bit? Or
yeah, no, it's a great question. I can't take credit for how the detail of those are put together. We have a data provider based out of Toronto that does statistical modeling on all of the demographics. If you've ever heard of a group called Environics, ours is very similar, called Manifold or Polaris Manifold Data Mining. So what they do is they have worked over the years using their statisticians to develop those. I think there's about 60 different lifestyle clusters that they have of varying degrees. And so they profile it. You'll notice some of the brands, you might see a brand like a Metro restaurant. That's an East Coast restaurant. So they aren't broken down specifically regionally, but they are as far as the type of restaurant. So a Metro would be like a Sobeys or something of that sort. So the idea of their modeling is they build that. We then work through our analysis of the trade area to identify which ones, what the demographics are showing us, and then we're able to use that profile segment or that lifestyle cluster to correlate with that. So it's not something that we specifically create ourselves, but it is an interesting visual that they continue to refine every year. We get updates every July on the data. So what you're seeing, the data you have now was 2025 data, and they continue to update and tweak some of those findings. If retailers go bankrupt, for example, or close, that are on there, they'll clean that list up.
And then I have a question on the retail prospects. So when you're talking about bringing, Fit for Less or another one, more another restaurant, how do you encourage that kind of competition in a community? Like, if we already have 3 or 4 of that, is it good to bring in a competition, like bringing in a major franchise like that? Or do you tend to practice protectionism and kind of say, well, we don't really need, like, what would be your recommendation on that?
It's a fair question, and it's why in that particular case, with something like a Fit for Less, it's a very low cost membership type of gym, whereas it may not have the personal service that the local gyms, fitness facilities that you have that might offer more high intensity training, more personal trainers on within the staff. the idea of something like a Fit for Less is for that audience that may just be looking for not personal trainers, just some equipment that they want to be able to use and pay an inexpensive cost. So it's sort of trying to fit them within a price spectrum that might be appropriate for the community.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to reading the full report. Are there any more questions? Oh, we have one more question, Councillor Babalola.
Please, when was this study completed? Like, when did you do the field study?
Yep, we were there, started it in the summer last year and did the survey in October and completed the study with some final edits in April of this year.
Okay, I was asking because I want to understand how you arrived on the vacant retail, commercial and industrial. Is that based on the available square footage of retail services or based on the available land use?
No, it's on the available buildings, so not just the land use. We had the GIS data from the municipality to help us with our mapping and reconciling some of those square footages. So it is based on the field work that we did with supported by the GIS data from the town.
Would you have an idea of what the vacant rate would be if, say, for example, Bell Center is not included?
What the vacancy would be?
Yeah.
It would probably drop to about, I think, something like 6.4 or 6%, something in that range. I think if you took the total of those three, the PV Mart, the Bell Center, the Sands, you'd probably come in at somewhere around 5, just over 5% vacancy. And in the industry, 5% is relatively healthy. Now, I wouldn't take PV Mart out because it's a very strong, viable backfill space. It should be able to attract a tenant interest. The Sands might be a little more challenging, but as I said, I don't think the Bell Center has a retail commercial future.
Yeah, okay, you've actually answered my question because I was wondering what would be if it's going to be like below 5 or so. Thank you.
Yep. And if you have vacancies, 5, if it's in that 5%, you never want it too low because then it's an inequitable balance between landlords and businesses. So you kind of want it to be in that 3 to 5 range generally.
1 second. Are there any questions online?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Go ahead. Councillor Duce.
Sorry, I just have one last question. You mentioned the location quotient here at the, what was it? 0.77, 1.14. What's an ideal number that we should be aiming for?
Typically, they say if it's at 1, so the goal you would want is to be in that 1.1 to 0.9. You kind of want to be in and around that balance point. So it would be anywhere in the 0.9 to 1.1 range.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. And we all look forward to looking at the main document here and seeing what else you guys came up with in there.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and Councillors. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to comments from the public, and the gallery is empty today. I'm hoping it's going to be full one of these days and just surprise us. Number 6, review bylaws or policies. We have none. Unfinished business, which is number 7, we have none. So we'll move on to current business, number 8. And first up is Director Fisher with the new town hall project design.
All here. I think this is all, yeah.
Yes.
We're just gonna load up the drawings because I don't think Councilor Erickson has the set in front of him. But
They were on the agenda.
they are on the agenda package, but we bring them up and I want to zoom in on some spots if possible. Oh, I can see my gold spot. Sorry. Been a long day.
You just have to share the screen time.
Oh, boy.
All right, so, we've got a bunch of background information on the building itself and the purchasing decision. So one of the major drivers for purchasing a new building and looking at upgrades was accessibility of the building. Lots of our community is senior services. We have a whole portion of the organization dedicated to supporting senior services. And they're really limited in how they can get into the building. If you have any mobility issues, it is a challenge to get up into the council chambers and participate in council meeting. If that is a thing. So that's sort of a major thing that we wanted to address with looking at the new building. Upgrading this building was quite expensive. I think the tendering stuff happened several years ago for some upgrades to add basically a chairlift to bring seniors from the lower back door to the main floor here. And it was about $650,000 at that time. Still didn't address accessible bathrooms, because there's nothing up here for them to access. And it was a really limited scope. Like, again, it was just bringing them up sort of the back stair here. Doesn't really get them access to bathrooms. Very limited access to the chamber here without some more modifications. And the building that we purchased does have a working elevator, does have 2 service desk areas that we were looking to maintain. We would clean them up a little bit and upgrade them to fit our needs a bit better. But that was something that was a consideration. Another one was emergency preparedness. We just kind of went through it. I don't know how many of you stuck your head into the council chambers here when you guys were coming in to meet. It was pretty busy, and at that time that you guys were coming into the office, I'd actually actively kicked a bunch of people out of the space. Because it was too noisy, it was really overbearing. We basically had to take down all the pictures off the walls. We were struggling to find spaces to like hang up maps and things like that when we were looking for it. We had tables set up all back here. We had to disassemble the gallery to be able to set up those tables. And it just takes time. And so like if it had been a faster moving incident, it would have been really another stressor as opposed to having a space that's kind of typically already set up. And then we had to find a place for you guys to meet separate from the council chambers. So that's sort of another driver. It's in the back of our mind. We are a river community. It's something that we go through every couple of years, it feels like. Another major consideration of wanting to upgrade this building is customer service, right? That's a major focus for administration. I think it's a major focus for council, is trying to make us more responsive to customer needs, people who come into the building for service. We have the front desk, and that's about it for space. If you're wanting to come in, it's pretty tight, it's small, there's not a lot of waiting space. If we're talking about somebody who's in arrears with one of their accounts or anything like that, there's nowhere to go and have those conversations necessarily in a private way, especially during certain times of the year. That front desk ends up, or the front boardroom ends up booked or triple booked. And so like it does create a bit of a friction during tax time where we've got to have these maybe a little bit more sensitive conversations and very limited space to be able to have them. So again, with the new building, the idea was creating a better waiting space for the public to come in, having it more approachable, more space. Each of the service desks has a space nearby where you can go and have those private conversations. So that was another one of the considerations. Privacy and security, again, the privacy thing, if you were in arrears or anything like that. And then building security right now, there's nothing really stopping somebody from, who really wanted to, from getting into the building and into the CAO's office. Up here, if you knew how to get around the labyrinth. It is a factor, and with new legislation changes, it does become more important for us to make sure that we have more secured areas. It's harder to get into the building, get access to information. It does become a requirement more and more as we get bigger and more robust. So those are kind of like the big drivers for the space. What we wanted to do is have a conversation with you about the space as it's kind of laid out, paying particular focus to the forward facing parts of the building, if possible, places where you guys are going to be meeting the public, wanting to use, or having committee meetings, things like that. So I think we have taken out some of the demolition drawings from the set just for ease of use. It does look very different. If anybody's been in the building, we would be knocking out some walls, moving some things around to make this work. But the intent is that you would come in to the building through the main door. This is off of Main Street here. To the right, we've called it a community boardroom. The idea is this is a space where if we have to have a larger meeting, if we're meeting with developers that are bringing like an entourage, even other levels of government, if they're coming to the community, we've got a space where all of the delegation that comes with them can participate, or even our committees. So NPC, EDC, Community Services Board. It's a space that we can have open after hours. We've got access to the bathrooms, everything's secure. So it's a little bit easier for us to manage the security thing right now to meet in the 12-foot boardroom or here. We have to bring a lot of people up and escort them in and out of the space. We have to do a sweep of the bathrooms, and so this just gives it like a better sight line on that kind of stuff. To the left is where we would have the council chambers. We've designed it as a slightly bigger space than this one with the consultant. The furniture stuff is not fixed, so we can change the furniture things. We should probably change the furniture things depending on how you guys want to engage with us. But we've included sort of a gallery. The intent is that we can fit up to 30 people here as an occupancy, which is more than I've seen in the room here. And then if we had to move people outside of the room to go into a closed session or an impromptu closed session like mid-meeting, we don't do that as often here, but in my previous community, whenever we had a closed item, sometimes we would just move in middle of the meeting and then come back out. So we would kick people out of the room, and they would go to a waiting space, and then we would bring them back in. So just a space where they could go and sit comfortably. We don't have to drag chairs out of the chamber and find a spot for them to sit when we have to do it. That's kind of the council chambers area. We do have a lunchroom put here. The intent is that, you know, in the evenings when council comes in, if we have hard conversations and we take a recess, if you needed to be in a spot separate from the public, you could do that. This would also function as our primary lunchroom on the main level because we don't really have one in the space right now. And we needed to probably keep something in there so that people didn't have to all traipse upstairs for lunchroom. Lots of us eat at our desk. We just go over and heat up our food and carry it over. We put some bathrooms back there. Again, the same thing. We haven't had any hard conversations. We haven't had any very difficult conversations with the public. Sometimes it's nice if you need to use a washroom and we're having a difficult conversation to not have to go into a public washroom next to a member of the public, and just gives some space for people to cool down a little bit. We would have to upgrade these two washrooms here. They're existing. They're not quite fitting the definition of like an accessible washroom, so we'd have to do a little bit of modification there. Fit. We'd have a main lobby with the front cash area, a meeting room nearby. Again, for those private conversations, you can sneak by, have those private conversations. And then by and large, we've kind of pictured our finance team on the main floor, with the CAO on the main floor, protective services near the back of the building, close to the door. On the second level, we kind of pictured community services right at the counter, because they're dealing with most of the public. And right adjacent to that front counter on the second floor would be sort of our development and infrastructure department.
Sorry, to the left or the right?
To the right. So this side would be the infrastructure and development department. This side would be the community services department primarily. Again, because we are usually, when we're meeting with the public, we're very likely to be dealing with private information, especially in the community services side. So we've got 2 of these board meetings set up. Again, to make sure that we can sit down and have some privacy as we go through things with seniors, especially during tax time, where they're sharing some pretty sensitive information. And we'd have one over here near the planning department again, if we're meeting with a smaller developer and we need to go through and look at plans and things like that. All through the building, again, we've included some security features, so it is entirely possible as a staff member to get back a post to each one of the counters, bring the public in from the public side, and have the staff member approach from the administration side. We've again considered the security piece here. And then in the upper portion of the building here, we've got a bigger lunchroom. Sort of if we're doing events or if we're having an emergency thing, we feed the staff that are responding and involved in an incident. So it's a space where they can go, sit down, eat, and we can keep it pretty clean. We've added sort of an incident command post or EOC area here. So this area has storage. The intent would be that this is sort of a display unit for the room. We can set up our main ICS structures in the space. And then we've got adjacent breakout rooms nearby. So we can do meetings. We can have a space for the radio to not be in the council chambers screaming at us while we're doing stuff. And have planning meetings. We also have a space for a quiet decompression room. Lots of emotions when you're going through an incident or a potential incident. Sometimes you need to take a moment and just calm down. That's a space to do it.
Where's that?
It's just in the upper corner here in the building. So it's right near the emergency response.
A quiet room, like a lobby, like a little chapel kind of room, quiet room.
It could be for staff if they need to pray, if they need to just get out of the noise and have a in an emergency scenario, it's really hard to find that space from experience. And then there's some space in here for future growth. So like we've kind of assumed at some point, you know, we're gonna move from a town to a city, or we're gonna see some growth. And we do want this building to be for a very long time. So there's some extra growth spaces kind of in each of the areas. We kind of took a look at, hey, what would, if we were to expand this area in the next 25 years, what would that look like? And we tried to put some spaces so that we don't need to do any kind of structural remodeling to fit those future spaces. So that's the really high level stuff. I guess what I would like to get some clarity on is we'd kind of talked previously in, was it December? It's all moving real fast. Sort of about approximate budgets of what an upgrade could look like. And so we had a phase 1, which was main floor, council chambers, code upgrades, and a bit of some functional stuff on the main floor. Option 2 was a bit more of making sure that we had the emergency space. We cleaned up some of the counter stuff on the upstairs main level. There was some other stuff in there too, but so the first phase was about 1.9. And then the second phase was looking at 2.9. And then we had option 3, which was either of those plus a little bit of an exterior refresh on the building, right? Just a, like, no, we're not talking remodeling the exterior, we're talking giving it a little bit of a paint job and
Get the yellow line on your windows.
and get rid of the old blind. Those are going regardless, those exterior blinds. But just trying to make it a little bit nicer looking on the exterior. So I guess first up is how are you guys feeling?
So what's the third, was there only 2 phases or 3 phases? What do you,
I think we had two options, which was like a phase 1, phase 2, and then
option 3? was-
option 3 was just
All in.
an exterior
Oh, okay.
doing up the.
And what was the number on that? That was included in
It
2.9?
was 1.9 for option 1, option 2 doing the whole thing was 2.9. And then adding the exterior piece to either of those options was about 160. I know those numbers are subject to change because inflation is doing a weird thing again. So I think what would happen is we would do the design and we'd get an updated cost estimate, then come back for discussion if we need to adjust budget.
Counselor Forsyth?
Would for the second level. Like if we were to go with. Option 1, like what would the time frame be, do you think? For needing to do the second level, like would it be? I guess my point is. It'd probably be a lot more money to now go to a renovation on the second floor later.
Yeah.
And then living through a renovation.
Yeah.
But like, is the second floor usable for a a good amount of time, or do you guys kind of think it would be something else we'd want to be doing sooner than later?
I think that is a conversation that we could be open to. I think there are some things that. For administrative health and just making sure that the customer service pieces are up to date. We would probably want to do sooner rather than later. I think that the biggest cost on the upstairs portion is going to be the lunchroom space, the bigger lunchroom, and the emergency operating area. And the spaces back there aren't ideal right now for that.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems,
They could be functional if we needed to.
yeah,
Like we could have run this event under the trailer. It's just not very comfortable,
yeah,
right?
gotcha.
Okay, council, your thoughts online. Robin, Counselor Erickson, would you have any thoughts on this, please?
I recognize that the building that the town is in right now is not very good. But I understood that this was being tabled for a year and now it's being brought back again. And it seems to me that it keeps getting brought back for another kick at the can. And right now we're still waiting for more positive economic news for the town. We know that Mercer is in trouble. And we know that hopefully these things can work out with this new group here, but we're not, Mayor Shannon and Deputy Mayor Carr and I are going to meet with Mercer on May 20th. And I don't think that we have enough news on there overall. If something were to happen where Mercer was not able to come up with an agreement with these people or somebody else, it'd be devastating for the town. I think it's not necessary at this time. And we've got possibility of merger of the municipalities. Who knows where the building is going to be? We also know that this building is built very, very poorly and it's not in good shape and it's going to cost a lot more than what you're projecting is going to cost. And I think it's early to do it, and it should be tabled as it was originally tabled.
I just want to
And I also
clarify.
know that the community is not in favor of it. And I think there's gonna be a lot of backlash if we started going ahead with more work on it.
Councillor Harrison, I just want to correct you on something. This last time, this was not put away for a year. It was just, it was for 6 months that we put it down the road. There was no year involved. That was the first time that we,
In any event, it should still be tabled for another 6 months to see what's happening.
Okay, we're, Councillor Carr, or sorry, Deputy Mayor Carr.
I tend to agree with Councillor Erickson in that, we're kind of in a period where we don't know what's gonna happen with our largest employer. I would kind of like to wait and see what happens with that personally. I also have some questions for you, Director Fisher. The one, we had approved, the prior council had approved 1 or 1.3 million. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, and we didn't approve an upgrade or increase to that.
no, and then a few months ago, we were asked for another 3 million.
No, I think it was 3 million in total.
Was that in total?
Yeah,
Okay, that was my question.
yeah. When in December, when we talked about it with the budget stuff, we were talking.
Okay, I understood that was in addition at the time. I didn't realize that was in total.
The total, and don't quote me on the exact.
No,
what was in
I'm
there,
just
but
going by memory as
it
well.
was
Yeah,
about 3 point something, because we do have some expenses already into the building, just in terms of like making sure that the elevator is functional.
Yeah.
Making sure, like, that we had to do some upgrades there.
Yeah.
And the design costs, and after that meeting, we really tabled the discussion with the design team to get some clarity on which way we were going, if we were going, to make sure that we were designing in the right direction, because I would hate to design it and then have to rework it or.
yeah, no, 100%. I do think personally, as a plumber, I do think there are an awful lot of bathrooms here, and I know what they cost, but I mean, that's splitting hairs at this point. I don't really have a problem with the layout of the building. My main concern is our largest employer in town and what position they're in and whether they're going to be around in however long. That's where my concern comes from. So I would tend to agree with Councillor Erickson. I would like to see it delayed for another 6 months until we have a better understanding of that. Because and then there's the regionalization thing that keeps coming up with the provincial government as well. You know, what's gonna happen with that? You know, like, you know, there's a lot of things that I think need to be settled out before we jump in and build a new building. I realize that we do need one, both for security. That was the reason why I originally voted to buy that, was more for the security than the accessibility, but they are both an issue. But I personally, I think we should be very cautious, but I really don't have an issue with the floor plan.
Can I say something as well? The building is known to be not built very well. I don't believe that the cost that they're estimated out of here for renovations are going to be that. It's going to be a lot more. I've talked to contractors, and I know that this is not going to be the case. And in any event, when you have the other complication factors with Mercer and with the possibility of merging of the municipalities, it's the wrong time.
Okay, Councillor Babalola, how are you feeling about this?
Well, like Deputy Mayor has mentioned, one of the reasons we consider this is security. I feel it is needed because we saw what happened just very recently about they talking about no space to stage up a security, emergency center. And also there is a valid point that maybe we are not sure about what our very, our, what's the name? The employer, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we are hoping that the employer gets back on their feet. But at the same time, the river is still there, whether employer is there or not there. The river is still there, the threats are real. We need these things. Accessibility is very important. We have said earlier today that people don't really come up here. Maybe the seniors want to come and they cannot access it. So we need to factor in what this building is actually used for. And I think we should do something about it. We already got it. Either way, we are spending on it. So that's.
Hey, Councillor Forsyth, let's see what you have to say about it.
I mean, I agree with everyone, but, I agree with Councillor Babalola too, like we bought this building, now it's gonna be going on 2 years, we're paying utilities. It seems to me like we've wasted enough time. I wouldn't mind seeing it move forward and at least get some more accurate cost estimates, and I personally like the design. I'd like to see the exterior part added. I think that would be almost most important. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
So what phase would match with your vision or intent?
If we're gonna do it, I think we should do the whole thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Deuce, you're on.
I don't really have an opinion on what the layout is. I think it looks good. The only room that I actually spend a lot of time in is council chambers, so it's up to administration how you guys think it would suit you best, I would say. So I don't really have a huge opinion on that. I think the designs look great and look fairly functional. If we were to go ahead with it, I would go for option 2, just do the whole renovation. I think there was a note in here that you guys are gonna finance it through a debenture that has cheaper interest than what you can earn.
That was the intent.
Yeah.
Initially.
Okay. And I just have a question. So yeah, anyhow, I would go with option 2 myself, just do the renovation if we're gonna do it. And add the $160,000 for the exterior refresh. I'm a big believer in pretty privilege. And, you know, people wanna do business in nice places and, you know, it does matter to investors when we're trying to attract them to the town. I think, I do have one question. What's the intention with this building? Are we planning on selling it? Are we planning on renting it out after we move?
I think the original intent was that we would do everything over, deal with at least some lingering storage issues, because we're gonna use this as an opportunity to update some of our file storage processes, I think. And pare some things down, and then once that's kind of dealt with, would be putting this out for an RFP to communities to see if somebody wants to do something cool with it or buy it and remodel it for condos or something else, right?
Yeah.
It's still a lot of work, but it's potentially a private industry is gonna have fewer issues with some of the public accessibility things and.
Okay, so yeah, that would be the way that I would go. Go ahead, sorry.
Apologies, so it was, yes, with the, debenture that we would directly go through with this renovation through debenture and then hopefully be able to invest a little to kind of balance out that interest, because we do get a fairly competitive interest rate with the province, so that would be our hopeful goal. Not guaranteed on those rates, but very hopeful on that. And then we would probably do the same thing we're doing with the other property on Main Street right now, the request for expression of interest. We would obviously bring this back to council as a decision what we would do with this building, but that would be a proposal because private industry would have a few more options to propose for the building. The other thing, you're never gonna find a good time to build or to do a town hall reno. Never. It is never a good time. It is the last thing you want to do. It's the last thing people want to spend money on. But at the end of the day, I think everyone is realizing that this is a need and there is that civic pride. And if we want to have developers and we want to bring them in and we want to meet with them, we need to have a space where we can be proud and bring them in and meet with them and want to, and have those meetings and have those developments. And right now, the space doesn't really accommodate that. So I think we had a lot of community support when we initially announced this. The feedback was outrageously positive, and people really understood the problems and issues with this building. So we certainly have a lot of work to do in communicating with the community and what to continue that positivity. And it won't always be easy. I will say that right now. Because it's never a good time to build a town office. It really isn't. And that will always be a decision to struggle with for any municipality. And so we will certainly go through some of those pains, but I think in the end of it all, we will hopefully come out the other side in a really positive place. And then I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so everybody had their say but me. This is a really, really hard, we need this. I am in total support of this project. I'm in total support of doing it all at once because it's only going to get more and more expensive to renovate. But that being said, I do believe if we waited this long, I do think we have to do our sober second thought and wait to see what happens with Mercer. I don't think that's too much to ask. I think that's just another delay, maybe till fall. I agree with the delay. I do agree with that we have to wait and see what that decision is and how that is going to impact our community. But that is the only thing. Other than that, I am in total support. I have walked through this office. I think we should give the public tours and they can see what you guys work in. I would not work in this town office. As a mayor, I meet with a lot of people. Now I waste time running between restaurants and places that I meet these people. I need a place where people can come. Everyone assumes that they can come see me here instead of me running around like a chicken all over town trying to meet with 10 people when I could be meeting with 20 if I had a spot to meet. But there's not even an empty spot for me to meet with anybody in here when I do want to meet. I got to make an appointment and the boardrooms are always busy. I go in to sign checks and I want to talk about how the front office is crammed like sardines and we have boxes of things. People should not have to work in a cubicle where you have to store all your stuff. You're working with bankers' boxes under your desk and behind you. And every time I walk by one of those offices, I think if that ever falls, they are stuffed in. We do not have functional workspace in this town office, period. And I don't like to spend that kind of money, but I am inclined to agree with Kayla that when I won't bring investors here. I won't, because there is nowhere professional to bring them in this town office. If they see your town office, that's going to be a reflection of your town. This is our house. We got to make sure our house is tidy and looks like we're ready to have company. And if not, then I can't see investors, wanting to come into a town where we can't even do business properly with them in one room. So, and the accessibility thing, as right from me, like if that 3 flights of stairs, I'm sorry. If anybody has a bad back, a bad knee, where seniors are totally left out of the conversation. But, I agree with Councillor Erickson and with Councillor Carr that we do have to do a pause here on the project. But other than that, I would like to see at least the drawings done up so that we could have a more accurate, if there is any changes to the drawings. I would have liked to see the Chamber of Commerce in this building. There's many town offices that have their Chamber of Commerce within it. And we have the room. I'm not saying they're going to have, sometime we're going to grow and we wouldn't be able to accommodate that. But that was a conversation we had when that log cabin was not fit for use. So I would like to see that conversation brought up. But other than that, I don't have a problem with the layout. But I would like to see a better price, like a more accurate price. And of course, you can't do that until you have the final drawings correct.
Yeah, well, what would happen is we would start doing, like, if there was a general consensus on, hey, we want to do the whole thing, we don't want to do it, or we just want to pause for now and then come back to the conversation later. what we would do is move through the design package, so we would build sort of the more detailed sheets, as opposed to just the conceptual layouts here. And then we would start building a spec for it and put it together. We can put together a more accurate cost estimates or pay the probable cost as we move through that process, right? So right now, we're working with like conceptual level detail. As you get more detail and get more of those things kind of fleshed out, like this is gonna look like that. This is how we're gonna deal with this code issue specifically. As you start getting more detail, you can get a more accurate cost estimate as you go through. So that price will tighten up, and it might go up, it might go down, but it should tighten up as we move through a design process.
Councillor Forsyth.
I was just gonna say, and that even if we pause on making the decision, I agree. It's smart to wait and see what's happening with Mercer. But all this work right now could probably start taking place before we.
Yeah, if council wanted, we could work through the design. Work through like getting better cost estimates with the consultant. If we've got some good guidance on we want to do the whole thing, or we would just want to do the phase one. We could work through that design process, and work through it through the summer here, and maybe bring that updated cost estimate and the design package to like something in the fall when we're talking about budget stuff. So like timing wise, that's probably where we're looking anyways. If we start a design now and work through some of the detailed stuff, we have.
6 months would take us to October. Councillor Deuce.
I would be in favor of that procedure going forward. I think speaking from on my part, I know what it's like to live in a half renovated house. So it would be my vote that we go with option 2, do the whole project myself and add the 160,000 for the exterior refresh. If that's what we're going, and just proceed with that as the plan that we're going to go with, should we decide to fully do this once we get the costs back. That would be what I would vote for.
And then if things change, like.
Yeah.
We haven't approved additional budget to do any kind of construction. So that's still a conversation we would have to have. So regardless, we will need a decision if you wanted to move forward and we had the design and their cost estimate, we would still need a decision in council to fund the project. And if we're doing a debenture, we'll need to do a government bylaw. There's a whole advertising component, and public hearing component to that debenture process as well. So there's lots of space on the back end. So we could start with the design and then we could pull the pin later if the big employer has some issues and that ends up being an actual issue for us as a town. You could pull the pin later, but we could do some of the groundwork here and get started.
CAO Parsons.
So based on this conversation, a proposed motion could be that council direct administration to update the new town hall project design and cost estimates and return this item to a future council meeting in the fall of 2026. So that way, when we come back to you, we have some firmer cost estimates and some updated designs within a timeline that is palatable for council.
Councillor Deuce.
I would be prepared to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. And you want to just read that one more time, please?
So it would be moved that council direct administration to update the new town hall project design and cost estimates and return this item to a future council meeting in the fall of 2026.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Councillor Deuce. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Thank you, that's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have addition to organization protective services with interim CAO Parsons.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Shannon. So before you will see our needs analysis for the addition of a protective services administrative assistant. So Currently, the services that an administrative assistant would provide are being performed by the Director of Protective Services, our fire chief, and some some administrative assistants in other departments. But they're not able to give full attention to those needs simply because they have full-time responsibilities already. So it's kind of being done off of the side of their desk, and then mostly by the director and the fire chief and the CPOs themselves. So this would be things from invoicing, call tracking, meeting coordination, minute taking, report writing, and then maintaining the MEP, or municipal emergency plan. Putting together court document packages when tickets and various orders that the CPOs may serve go to court, and all those types of things, general correspondence, letters, all of that. They're all drafting and doing all of that by themselves at this point. So that it goes into that service gap. So we do have some delays in our invoicing and reporting. And just some of that reduced efficiency in operational oversight and aligning staff's responsibilities within their departments and maintaining that. So all of this would get allocated under an administrative assistant for protective services and alleviate some of that burden off of the director and the fire chief and the other administrative assistants within the organization, allowing them to focus more on their core duties and being out on the road and serving the public, as opposed to having these administrative duties on their plate. We wouldn't see any negative operational impacts. This would improve overall departmental efficiency. And currently we wouldn't have any budgetary impacts. We pulled understanding council's not necessarily fully comfortable with that temporary bylaw position and not fully feeling that that was the most effective use. We feel, sorry, that an administrative assistant in this department would be a little bit better use of resources. And so we pulled back that advertising for that bylaw officer, and we're already midway through the year. So we would be able to easily accommodate that in current budget. Expected benefits have already covered that. It's going to improve timelines, improvement administrative processes, take some of that burden and stress off of the leadership team there in trying to do their own reporting on top of just the day-to-day work. So then there would just be minimal transition, just onboarding this individual and getting them up to speed and transferring all the work from the various admin assistants who are providing some support. Otherwise, it would be a fairly easy transition in. And so I'm very open for any questions that council may have.
Councillor Douce?
Just one question I have. Is this a full-time position or part-time?
Sorry, this would be one full-time FTE.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one. So if I remember correctly, the director of protective services was hired as a 70-30. That's what I know council wanted, 70 boots on the ground, 30 administrative in the office. So if we get this, if we get another, if they get their admin, would he be able to go back to that 70 on the ground, 30 in the office, or would it be possible to have him 80 or 90 on the ground? How would that work?
I think we had it the other way with a little bit more 70% in the office and 30%
No.
on the ground.
No.
But either way, yes, I feel that this would alleviate a lot of that, some of that burden that would allow him to get out a little bit more than what it is right now.
Okay, thank you. So what's everybody's thoughts on this? Councillor Carr,
I think,
Deputy Mayor Carr.
I think it's a good move. It makes more sense to me than a bylaw position. I think protective services is the only department that doesn't have admin. So I mean, in my mind, it makes sense.
I think it makes sense as well. That is a very important department. And I think that they do have a lot of administrative work and very important, timely and detailed, sensitive administration work. And I don't think that that should be shared with other, it needs your full attention. I don't think that's the type of work that can be spread around or delegate it out. So I too agree. I think this is probably a really good move. Anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah, I agree with, I like this idea as well. Yeah, I've noticed huge improvements to this town, since this department has kind of been here and found its footing, so. Yeah, I support this, and at the moment, it doesn't even affect the budget, so. I'm in favor as well.
Would you be in favor of supporting a motion?
I could do that.
Interim CAO Parsons, what would that look like?
And I could just offer move that council direct administration to return the addition to organization protective service administrative assistant to the next council meeting for formal decision.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there is a motion on the table. All those in favor of the motion? And that motion is carried. Next up, we have Deputy Mayor Carr's April 13th, 2026 notice of motion, MMSA membership process with interim CAO Parsons.
Thank you, Mayor Shan. So on April 13th, that notice of motion was brought forward. And then at the April 27th meeting, unfortunately, Deputy Mayor Carr wasn't able to be with us, but Councillor Erickson happily moved the motion forward to direct administration to contact MMSA and inquire what was required for membership. And so we did move forward in that and contacted Mr. Allen for MMSA, and he confirmed that the process remains that in order to become a member, you submit your request to MMSA for membership. They review their request with their administration, assess if they have the capacity to take on that additional client and workload, and then they either grant or reject the request. And so we did just provide a little bit of additional information about MMSA and just the town's planning department in a general sense. We had confirmed some numbers previously. So in 2025, the number to join for us was about 137,000, let's say. And they confirmed that the rate didn't change from 2025 to 2026. And so that remains the same. And then of course, prorated on whenever you would join. And then the memberships are typically on a 5-year term when you enter into the agreement. And subject to annual increase should they choose to implement one. They didn't this past year, but they may in future years. They currently have 13 members, 3 established planner positions, with 1 being vacant, and they have recruitment ongoing. We were previously a member of MMSA and at the time had negotiated 2 days a week of an in-house municipal planner and a part-time with a GIS tech. And then currently for the town, we have 1 manager of planning and 1 development officer with the director of infrastructure overseeing that department and an administrative assistant who supports the planning department along with the director himself and the ADO or economic development officer. So we would just seek council's direction as to any further action that they would see from this notice of motion.
So first of all, I want to give Deputy Mayor Carr a chance to speak to this since it's his notice of motion. Go ahead.
I felt last time it was the right move, last term, it was the right move. I very much believe in working with our neighbors on a regional basis, and this is one more example that we can do that. In addition to helping our smaller neighbors, I don't know how council feels whether they would want a presentation from MMSA before they made a decision on this. But we did have a presentation the last term. But if not, then I would be willing to make a motion to apply for membership.
Councillor Erickson.
I'm in favor of Deputy Mayor Carr's motion on this one.
Interim CIO Parsons.
I suppose, I would just ask before proceeding with a motion, perhaps a little bit of clarity for administration, for applying for membership, how we would be utilizing that. If they're going to be a contracted service, supporting our town's departments, we'll need to kind of research how that would work with the New West Partnership Trade Agreement and whether we would need,
Yep.
how that would work.
Sorry, that was not what I was talking about with a partnership. I would like to see them do our planning personally. Just like the last term.
She's asking whether it's a contracted, if we're looking for them to contract them in addition to our planning department or in,
I would be looking at a
Instead of-
5-year agreement and as we had discussed before, I believe it's MD of Peace has a few escape clauses if they do not hold up their end. I think that's not unreasonable, but I would like to see MMSA do our planning.
and just to clarify, on a permanent basis, not
On
as a
5-year
contractor. Okay. Councillor Babalola.
Deputy Brad was asking if it would be necessary for MMSA to come make a presentation. I think that would be a good idea for them to come and present to council, tell us about their services, so like we know how best they can assist us.
Councillor Luce.
Yeah, I would think that's a good suggestion. I wasn't on council last term, so this is fairly new to me as far as what types of services they offer, how they might work with the town. I'm not prepared to vote on a motion to join them right now. I would like to see a pros and cons list. And I have another question. What have we been doing now in the absence of having a manager of planning and development for the last year?
Complaints because I'm not as responsive.
Like you're managing.
Me, it's all great, and
Okay.
I'm the bottleneck for a lot of these decisions and discussions. That's not an exaggeration, we are getting complaints because it's sitting on my desk, not getting addressed fast.
Okay.
And Councillor Forsyth.
Yeah, I'd like a presentation and more information too. I think. Yeah, I don't really know enough at this point, and I think this past week in Ottawa, I'm worried if we do see some of the projects go forward in this region that we're anticipating. I think we would need to be beefing up our own in-house planning department. I think there's gonna be a whole lot of work that's needed, and I worry that maybe they'd be stretched too thin if something like that were to go forward. I could be wrong, but for that reason, I don't really feel comfortable voting today.
Director Guido.
If I may, over the 5-year term, we're looking at probably $1 million. This is a really big decision, so it'd be nice to see a presentation from MMSA, maybe some financial statements, maybe acknowledgement as to whether or not they have capacity. And under our purchasing bylaw and the regulations that we need to follow, like the Northwest Partnership Trade, we probably would be required to tender something like this, given the dollars involved, if that's the direction we wish to move in. Just throwing that out there for
Councillor Carr.
Can I ask, how did you come up with $1 million?
136,000 times 5 years is 750,
Okay.
build in a little bit for inflation. If we need extra services on top of that,
Okay.
is just a really rough, I haven't run calculations, but
no,
it's
that's
kind of
fair.
ballparking.
My only concern, oh, go ahead, interim.
I was just gonna say, and
Yeah.
in follow-up to Councillor Forsyth's comments, I know one of council's priorities is economic development and growing that. And joining MMSA as our planning service would be an extremely reduced level of service. for our community. And so that's something to consider. If we're wanting to grow that economic development portfolio, that plays significantly into planning. And so that's just one thing that you'll want to think about, and definitely ask MMSA during the presentation if they think they would be able to keep up with that level of demand that we will be bringing, because we will be bringing. And if you know, their clients tend to be small villages and towns and counties that tend to have less planning needs than larger centers such as us. So just some food for thought is all. And if council, it seems council is maybe leaning towards wanting a presentation. So if someone, obviously, please continue the conversation if there's more conversation, but suggested motion could be to direct administration to invite MMSA to present to council on their planning services. If someone wanted to entertain that motion after conversation, if that continues to be the direction council wants to proceed.
Okay, I have a couple of questions before we go. In your briefing note, it has memberships are typically based on a 5-year term. What can you explain that? What do you mean typically? So really, we can go for a different term?
That's their standard term that Mr. Allen had said are their agreements. So
Because typically implies that there are other options.
I guess that was just my writing.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to
It's
make
their
sure.
standard.
Okay.
I'm sure if we wanted to do something different, we could maybe ask them. if that's
My
what
only,
their
my
intention, but-
concern is also, I was with Jeff and we talked a lot about planning. The planning conversation came up in quite a few of the presentations, how you're planning out, how you're building out your city or town now, and how those, it's a kind of like a slow build, a slow growth. But I also agree with Brad that I don't mind the centralized service if they can give us that same service. My worry is that if we join for 5 years, we need to have some kind of a escape clause in there, because if they can't keep up with the capacity as we grow, what if we grow really fast and they can't keep up with their side or their employees, if they're not full complement all the time and are having to contract out there, or we having to contract there on top of the fees that we're paying for their service. I would not want to it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. I don't want to make a decision and then realize that it's not, there's no capacity there, and we are because in this economic development in the near future is going to be hard and fast. And after going to Ottawa last week, hearing about nuclear and what we should be doing now at present, that's the only part that worries me. But I think that we need to have that presentation, because we have 4 new councillors, and also we can ask more questions. Now, I'm sure that they'd be maybe open to different scenarios or escape clauses, or if they can't, do full capacity, I'm not sure, but we have to have the conversation. So I would totally support having that another presentation. And it is a very important decision, because this is going to be impact us for 5 years, and a lot can happen in that 5 years. So if MMSA can they guarantee though? That's my worry. Can you guarantee that you have the capacity for 5 years to give us for that? That's a lot of money. So I'm hoping we can get some clarity on that at the presentation. Would you agree? Councillor Duce, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with those sentiments too. That was my biggest concern, was whether or not they would be able to handle the capacity of what we might need going forward. I think they said they have 3 planning positions, 1 is vacant, so they only have 2 planners right now. And we have 1 in-house planner as it is. And one of my big concepts, or not big concepts, one of my big suggestions when we were doing our strat plan was to have a really robust economic development, planning development department. So I would like to see a presentation as well going forward, to see, ask some questions to them directly and just gather some more information before we make this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Duce. Okay, I guess we're going to be open for a motion.
You have one written?
It was moved that council direct administration to invite MMSA to present to council on their planning services.
Okay, for Councillor or Deputy Mayor Carl will make that motion. On the floor, all those in favor of the motion? And that motion is carried. Moving on to number 4, quarterly reports with interim CAO Parsons.
Sorry, you really have the kids actually tonight. So on the agenda later, you'll see that we have our quarterly reports. But administration has been talking about these reports and how they're looking and how they are working for council. And so we really wanted to get your feedback on exactly that. You know, what do you like about the current reports? What could be improved? You know, what information are you finding useful? What are you seeing on there that you're thinking, you know, we don't really need this, it's too much reading, or maybe, you know, just an appendix, but we want bigger highlights. Maybe you don't even want quarterly reports, maybe you want it in a different style. And they're not quarterly. So just a little bit of feedback as we undertake reviewing these, so that we're getting you, administration is getting you the information that is useful to you. And so we don't have to have this conversation fully tonight, by any means. If you have some thoughts off the top of your head, please feel free to share them, but we can also bring this conversation back to the next GMP, give you guys some time to think about it and bring back some feedback, or just send off some emails with some thoughts and ideas. But we just want to make sure that we're getting you the information that you need in a way that is useful.
Any comments or questions? I think we should all read the reports or have read them or whatever and make some notes on what we'd like to see. I like that you brought this forward, that we can take a look at that, like maybe make them a little more functional, or take a look, everybody, and see what you think. Does anybody have any comments off the top of their head for the reports?
I like the quarterly reports. I do like that.
And the format, do you think that could be improved on? Too long, too short, not pinpointed enough?
I'd like to look at it and come back.
Okay, that sounds good. So would there be a motion attached to this?
So a proposed motion could be to direct administration to return the quarterly report format review to the next GMP meeting for further discussion.
Okay. Can someone put that motion on the floor? Councillor Babalola. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? And that is carried. And again, with interim CAO Parsons, we have the NRED grant application.
So I believe this was mentioned to council earlier, but we wanted to bring it formally in public now that the decisions have been announced by the province. So we had submitted a NRED grant, that's the Northern Regional Economic Development Program, in 2025 under intake 4 for the Town of Peace River Marketing Roadmap campaign. Unfortunately, we were not successful in that grant application, but we've been encouraged to reapply under intake 5, which opens in the fall of 2026. But even though we did not receive that funding, our economic development officer is not hindered and has a lot of ideas to position Peace River as a destination of choice for travelers, and to ramp up that marketing program regardless of the grant. Both the federal and provincial levels, long-term tourism strategies have been introduced with ambitious goals for growing the visitor economy. The Government of Canada's federal tourism growth strategy highlights an intent to strengthen national tourism assets, enhance outdoor recreation, and improve sector coordination, forecasting significant long-term growth and opportunities across the country. Similarly, Alberta's higher ground tourism strategy aims to grow the province's visitor economy to 25 billion by 2035, with strong emphasis on competitive tourism products, expanded access, and enhancing nature-based and Indigenous tourism experiences. So these are obviously hefty goals for the federal government and the province, and something that's on their radar. So we are ready to continue helping to progress that and making sure that Peace River is on the map. So we will be, moving forward with some scaled marketing initiatives and positioning Peace River as a unique northern destination, despite, some limited external prioritizations of some of the province's rollouts on it. So all of that just to say that despite not being successful in that grant specifically, we have some hefty plans by our EDO to continue marketing the town of Peace River and get us on the province's radar and everyone else's radar. So really excited to see what she brings forward. And we can come back in the fall of 2026 with a proposal for council for the 2026 NRED grant. If that is something that council wants to consider at that time.
That makes me very happy.
Any,
Go ahead.
any idea why we were declined this year?
I think it had a little bit to do with some of the way we framed how we were partnering on the project. And did more of shows of support as opposed to specific partnering. And so we are going to be reframing it next time to be clearer on how we will be partnering on these and working as a regional group and regionally collaborating on these initiatives to move it forward. And I think that will see our success
That's fair.
go up.
Well, I can tell you that Peace River is on the provincial radar as well as nationally. I've had a lot of people, and so did Councillor Forsyth, come up to us knowing that we're on Peace River just to talk about the project, the potential project. So we really need to keep we need to keep ourselves in that spotlight so people know that we're an active, happening community.
That's very positive to hear.
So do we need a motion out of that or just for information? Okay, anybody? Of course, Councillor Forsyth?
I move the council accept the NRED grant application update for information.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. And next up is number 6, again with interim CAO Parsons, the rural renewal stream program update.
So the employer demand for the rural renewal stream in Peace River has remained consistently high. Administration was receiving approximately 10 to 15 inquiries per week regarding the program. And prior to the announcement that the program was paused, inquiry volumes averaged 40 to 50 per week. In addition, telephone and electronic inquiries, administration continues to experience in-person visits from individuals seeking information or advocating for exceptions to support their continued employment and residency in the community. Employers have repeatedly expressed concern that without access to this program, they face risk of losing employees in numbers that are not operationally sustainable. This concern aligns with provincial findings showing that rural Alberta communities experience persistent and operational labor shortages driven by aging populations, low in migration, and out migration of youth to larger cities. Since Peace River's participation in the program in 2023, a total of 54 local businesses have applied to the rural renewal stream. And as part of the April 28, 2026, administration has issued a total of 248 endorsement letters to candidates to support employers in recruiting and retraining workers. So without the renewal of this program, businesses may face some difficulties in obtaining and retaining staff, particularly ones that were using this program to stay working. However, unfortunately, the town cannot, in its capacity, improve the effectiveness and strength of the rural renewal program in town, as the program is federally and provincially regulated. So basically, the federal government has cut down the amount that they're allowing for immigration, and so the province has respectively had to cut down their immigration programs, and they have significantly cut down the number of spots that we are able to fill through that program. So while we're not taking any new applications, people who are already in the program and are receiving that endorsement from the province, we have a few spots that we are allotted that we can give, but they are filling up, and they will not be at the same rate as they were previously. And so we will be coming forward to council in the future once we get a bit more information about 2027 and what that program looks like and how council would like to proceed with the program. But right now we're just kind of tied up with what the province's numbers that they've given us. And I believe Director Fisher also has a little bit that he would like to add about the program.
Yeah, and I see we turn that on. And I'd just like to jump in and share, right? But the reason that the program was paused was we have all of those endorsement letters sitting in the background, the 248 that have already been issued. I think that the number of people that the province was going to invite to the next step, they sent us a letter in January and February that led to us pausing the program. It was like 24, 25, is in the 20s.
That's it.
Right, so we're significantly oversubscribed to the program, and so the continuing to accept new applications is really just giving people like a false level of hope, to be honest. So, we've got 248 endorsement letters out there, but only 24 of them are to be invited to the next step of getting their residency.
Okay, but out of that pool, it doesn't matter how big that pool is, right? We could still accept them right up to, it might put their chances down, but could we not still accept people, at least they'd have a bit of a chance to get into that 24? If we have 248 letters, could we not have 300 letters and still let the 24 come out of that? I don't get why we would close off applications when all it's doing is making the pool bigger, but it's giving the people that are applying a chance, and without accepting those, they're not even in the pool for getting one of those 24 slots.
But at the same time, if I may, Director Fisher says you're giving them false hope. Mhm.
But false hope, I mean, what about the ones that are already in there? That's kind of their kind of false hope too.
Yes.
I mean, you could make that clear to them, but I would sure, if I were in that position, I'd rather throw my name into a hat of 300 and take my chances than just not throw it in at all. How can you help me explain that to me?
Yeah, so I think the issue here is, we can only pull from our existing, approved businesses and applicants that are already have endorsement letters with the town. So the 248, of those 248, we've probably provided endorsement letters for all of them, but some of those have expired. So they only have a 1-year allocation from the province. So that 248 will be continuously running through annually, trying to get into the 24 or 25 spots that we have. So we don't want to accept further individuals, which then would continue to grow and provide less access to even the 248 that you currently have. It's put communities in a very unpleasant situation, because all of these folks have met all of the standards, thresholds, and criteria to date. But now we've gone from accepting large numbers to very narrow parameters, and hence the choice and decision to pause, so that we weren't continuing to add to that pool that really has a very narrow possibility of access. So that's the crux of the decision making. It's not great. Our hearts goes out to all of those individuals because they are in a tough spot.
Councillor Deuce?
So if we give them an endorsement letter, that they can submit that letter to the Alberta government for citizenship, right, or for consideration of it. And do they vet them at any point?
Yes.
Okay, so if we give them the letter, then it goes to the provincial government to vet them. So there's no saying that any of the 24 that we
Correct.
encourage will be picked.
Correct.
Sorry, to be clear, the province is only inviting 24 out of the 248
Yeah.
that have applied to go to the next step.
Yeah.
So, once we do the endorsement letter. It's not much.
It's out of our head.
Yeah,
It's
it's
completely
completely
up
out of
to
our
us.
hands.
It's
Yeah.
entirely in the spot of the province.
Yeah.
It's a really weird program.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's challenging, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Carr?
I just have, just kind of a side note on this. I understand what you guys are saying, but I spoke to a gentleman that drives truck for Grimshot Trucking, and I don't know what percentage of people who took part in that rural renewal stream were from India, but I think it was a pretty high percentage. He was telling me, about 3 weeks ago, that 5 of his friends left town the day before, because of the situation that the federal provincial government put us in. And that he said at the high point, he had well over 500 people on a site that he had created for people from India that were working in Peace River, filling jobs. Every one of them was working. And the day I spoke to him, I think we were down to 180 or something like that were still here. Like, that is a lot of service level jobs that are now open.
Yeah.
Yes,
And we're all gonna feel it, not to mention the housing and the return on the money they're spending, and like, that's a pretty good kick in the pants for the town.
the rural renewal program, its original design, I've always questioned, because you have City of Grand Prairie, City of Medicine Hat. These are larger centers, in theory in rural areas, but quite large centers. So our smaller municipalities, which, would have been the beneficiaries originally of the program, even though the cities were involved. I still question why the cities were included in this genre of the program, because we have much different struggles attracting than City of Grand Prairie would, or City of Medicine Hat. So unfortunately, with the downsizing from the federal government, this is how the province has chosen to redirect the allocation of their number of allocation. There are other programs. Rural renewal is only one of many under the Alberta AAIP, Alberta Immigration, I'm missing a letter or two program. There's a tourism component, there's quite a number of other programs, so this is the allotment we've received. And you will see impacts, and employers will see an impact to the decisions.
Okay, so, do we have a motion? Okay, Councillor Duce, go ahead.
Move that council accept the rural renewal stream program update for information.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Number 7, we have topics for discussion during Alberta municipalities meeting with interim CAO Parsons.
Mayor Shannon. So last item is just that we are very fortunate to have our Alberta Municipalities Director for Towns West, Krista Gardner, along with the AB Munis President Dylan Bressie, coming to visit the town of Peace River in May and have a meeting with council. And so we just wanted to get some direction from council. If there are any specific materials or anything that you would like to see brought forward for that discussion. Again, not something that you necessarily have to tell us specifically tonight, but just to kind of get that on your minds, to provide us direction either just before the meeting or currently, if you do have something on your mind that you'd like us to have prepared. So we'd be also very happy to just accept a motion to accept this report for information, and then we can kind of talk about that as we go. Or just kind of leave the meeting a little less formal, and as topics arise, we can forward information to them afterwards, after the fact. So just looking to get council's thoughts on that.
One thing I want is to speak to them about the content of their conference and how we could possibly get some information sessions that would be more focused on their smaller urbans instead of the larger ones, because I find there's a real disconnect there. There's a lot for the larger ones and sometimes a lot less for the smaller urban municipalities. Well, code of conduct, but that's a bigger thing. And I'd like to see what kind of support they have for things like if we need a facilitator to help us with anything like a group ICF or something like that that might be coming down the pipe, what kind of support they have, or would that be the municipal affairs that we have to go to? So that was 3 that I had, but we can add to them, and we can just be an informal visit too. Dylan is a very easy guy to speak to, and he would jump to any topic that we decided we needed to discuss. So I'll open the floor. Anybody else have any?
Nothing on the top of my head, but I'll think about it and I can send an email to.
Like, would you like to make a motion then while you're at it?
Sure, I'll move that council
Separate.
accept this report for information and email with any ideas for the upcoming meeting.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. We'll now move into reports. We have a number of them here, 1 to 6. We all read them, and we have any questions? And if you didn't get through all of them, I would say to do it tonight and then take a red pen and make any suggestions or anything that you want for Kayla so they stand out. I didn't see too many. I have a couple little things there that I think we could improve on, but if we have any questions coming out of those reports, now would be the time to ask them. Seeing, oh, sorry, Councilor Forsyth.
I just have one question. I know the hot tub we're waiting for a part. Is there any time estimate on that part?
Unfortunately, I was hoping to have a meeting before this meeting to be able to give you a little more detail, but it's tomorrow afternoon.
Okay,
So I'll know a little more tomorrow afternoon.
fair enough, thank you.
Okay.
Timing.
Yes.
So if there is no questions for the reports, could someone please accept them for information? How about, oh, go ahead, Councilor Babalola.
I move that council accept reports 9.1 to 9.6 for information.
Okay, motion on the floor. All those in favor? And that is carried. Number 10, the council communication package. From April 24th. Does anybody have any questions stemming from that or comments to highlight? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to accept for information. Councilor Deuce,
Move that council accept items 10.1 for information.
all those in favor? And that is carried. We are now looking for a motion to move us into closed. And Deputy Mayor Carr has that motion. All those in favor for going into closed. And that is carried. We are now in closed and the live stream will end for the evening.